just a brief introduction for those that haven't attended any of my boot camps or any of my office hours as of yet. Stephanie Hammond, I am the head sales and marketing nerd here at Enable, part of the head nerd program. So hopefully you are familiar with our automation nerd, backup nerds, security nerds. Hopefully you've been attending their boot camps and their office hours that they hold. So we now have myself as the kind of the business head nerd, helping with your program design, your pricing, your sales, your marketing. So just like my other colleagues in the program, I too would, delivering boot camps just like this, and also having office hours as well. And I'll just put a plug in now that my office hours are actually taking place next Tuesday. So I have the link there. I'll also send out an email to everybody today as a reminder of that as well. But there's lots of ways that you can get a hold of me besides the office hours. My email address is there. I am on LinkedIn, so if you're on LinkedIn as well, would love to connect. And then I'm also on Twitter as well. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we jump into this all. Everyone is on mute, and it's just to maintain call quality. But if you have any questions, I encourage you to use the questions panel. I do have built-in breaks as we go through today's session. So if you have any questions, please use the question panel so that we can track them, as opposed to the chat. The issue is if you use chat, once the session is done, I lose all those notes. So if there's some questions that come up that for some reason I'm not able to get to, we'll lose them if you use the chat. So if you can use the questions panel, that would be fantastic. Also, this session is being recorded. I know it's a question that comes up quite a bit. So this session is being recorded because it is going to be uploaded into the MSP Institute within the Customer Success Center when it's all ready. So if you wanted to hear it again, if you wanted to have anybody from your team listen to it, just give it a couple of weeks. Our marketing department needs to kind of clean it all up and get it all edited, and it will be uploaded into the MSP Institute. And then if you don't have a login to the Success Center, the link is there. I've posted on the screen. You can just go in self-service. You can go and create your own link, your own registration login. If you do have any questions, then just reach out to your partner success manager, and they'll be able to get you going on that. And if you don't happen to know who your partner success manager is, just ping me, and I'll track it down and get it sent over to you. All right. So if you attended my session earlier this week that focused on lead generation, but it was through the marketing lens, then you saw this opening slide, because I used the same slide as I did earlier. Net new customer acquisition continues to be the #1 challenge facing MSPs today. And if you happen not to have attended my session earlier this week, I'm sure this statement doesn't come as a surprise to any of you. MSPs, our partners, are continually challenged with finding net new leads and net new customers for their organizations. And same message as Tuesday. When I talk to partners, and I've talked to many partners over the years, when I ask them what their current sales efforts are, what their current marketing motions are that they have in place, and what are they doing to find new customers, oftentimes I'm told that their main source of lead gen is through word of mouth. It is done being completed through referrals. But as I cautioned on Tuesday's session, relying on referrals as your main source of lead gen is not going to be a sustainable way to meet, it's not going to be a sustainable way to meet your company's growth objectives year over year. Referrals are great, but they should be looked at as a bonus, kind of not your de facto company growth strategy. And so looking at why are MSPs continuing to face this challenge? I've been in this role for 17 years, and this seems to be a constant challenge. And it seems from speaking to so many partners over the years, it continues, I think, to come down to really two key factors. The first being that many MSPs are lacking a cohesive marketing strategy, They're lacking personnel to do the basic marketing activities needed to find new leads. They're really busy working in the business, and so the efforts of marketing, the activities of marketing are often overlooked. Maybe it's not deemed a priority, but more of an afterthought, and it's done on more of an ad hoc basis. So my earlier session, Growing Beyond Referrals Through Marketing, that talked about how to create and implement a sustainable marketing program. And it was all designed to help you generate leads, but good quality leads for your organization. And it focused on leveraging both digital as well as traditional marketing methodologies. And then the second key factor that I had found when speaking to partners is that they're lacking the proper sales structure around their sales motions. So if they're doing the marketing, they tend not to be doing well when it comes to actioning a lot of their marketing generated leads that come into the organization. Sometimes they're not being followed up on, or they're not being followed up on in a timely manner. And so those leads end up going cold, and they end up falling through the cracks. Or they seem to be lacking the ability to proactively go out there and create their own leads. And we refer to those ones as sales generated leads, to supplement their own marketing activities to help fill that marketing funnel. So I really look at today's boot camp as being a sister boot camp to my earlier session, Growing Beyond Marketing, or Beyond Referrals Through Marketing. But we're just looking at the other side of the coin today on this activity called lead gen. Because while it's really important to implement a proper and systematic marketing plan, that's fundamental in helping to generate awareness and create interest for your organization. For true growth year over year, you also want to tie in a proactive outbound telemarketing sales motion as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So just setting some expectations, what are you in for? Like my other session, it's a 2-hour boot camp designed for all MSP business owners, CEOs, presidents, marketing personnel, sales management, ops people, but really who can benefit anybody that's interested and accountable for growing the revenues of the organization. Anyone that's accountable for improving the overall business valuation of the business, I think hopefully will benefit from today's session. So the objectives really of today's session, what is it that I want you to walk away with? I really want you to focus on lead gen beyond just, again, relying on referrals, by reviewing how to build and how to implement a successful, whether we call it a cold calling, whether we call it a telemarketing motion within your organization, if you currently don't have one in place today. Or maybe you do have one, maybe you do have a cold caller or an inside salesperson on staff, but maybe you're not really getting the results that you're hoping for. So today, if you don't have a telemarketer in place, we'll go through how can you identify, find, and hire an in-house telemarketing person for your MSP. We'll talk about how you can build and how you can implement a training program so that you can properly train your new telemarketer and set them up for success. And to help with this training aspect, I have some sample scripts that we're going to review, some sample scripting around how to handle the most common objections that your telemarketer will likely receive, that you can use to include in your own training and for role-playing purposes. So just want to get a quick idea from everyone on the line today. My colleague Sarah is going to launch a poll. I just want to know, for those that are on the line, do you have someone currently dedicated to the role of cold caller? Maybe you're outsourcing it to a third-party company. Maybe you have it in-house. Maybe you don't yet, but you do recognize the need of the role and you do plan to implement in either later on this year or maybe next year. Maybe you've never had anybody devoted to cold calling and you don't plan to, and I hope I can change your mind at the end of today. Or maybe you were one of those that had it, but you haven't replaced them as you really didn't feel that the role of the cold caller was effective. And again, I'm hoping if you're in that camp, I can help move the needle on that one as well. All right, so just looking at the votes coming in. Oh, awesome. So 67%, we do have an in-house cold caller. That is incredible. That's awesome. And 33% no, and we don't plan to. Okay, well then for those 33%, I really would love to get your feedback if I can, somewhat get you to maybe reconsider. But anyway, I appreciate you being on the webinar today. Thank you everyone for voting. So, should you invest in hiring a cold caller for your organization? Kind of a rhetorical question, because there's a whole boot camp on it today. Because I think, yes, if you don't have this function today, whether through a third-party company or in-house, or if you're not thinking of it, I'd like to challenge you that maybe look at having someone in this role to really supplement and really augment the marketing that you're doing as well. But I absolutely can understand your hesitation. There are a lot of MSPs out there who feel that telemarketing, cold calling, it's a thing of the past, especially when you look at that we're in the age of social media, we're in the age of online marketing. And so they're not using it in their business because they just don't think it's going to be a worthwhile endeavor. And, for those that might be sitting there, that may have had it before and it hasn't been working, you might be thinking, we've been there, we have bought the t-shirt. I know I've talked to partners over the years where they've tried hiring a cold caller a few different times. It never worked out. And it really didn't do anything to help generate new leads for the sales team. But again, I'm here to challenge you that this old school technique, it works, and it has worked really well for a lot of our top MSPs, our best-in-class MSPs. They regularly utilize the motion of cold calling. Goodness, here at Enable, it's always been a critical component of our sales. We have a whole department. We have a team of 21 people, I think now, dedicated to the role of cold calling at Enable, and we've been doing it for years. Like I said, I've been with the company for 17 years, and we had a small team of inside salespeople even before I started, who their job was to do calling and try and find us new partners. You're a partner here listening to me today. You probably got a call from one of those people, because having a cold caller, having a telemarketer, it really works to help commercialize, all of those other marketing activities that you've been doing, like your social media activities, like your email marketing activities. But those are all what we call passive outbound marketing activities that are designed to help build virtual relationships with your audience. And the role of the cold caller, though, it kind of does all that proactive legwork of attempting to connect with all of your virtual audiences so that you can turn those prospects into leads, into real people who will want to meet with you. And so my hope is that during this presentation, I can convince you maybe to consider the idea of the cold calling, because the activity of cold calling is really important, and I really feel that it's necessary. And it will work as long as we have the right structure and the right activities in place. Because if you've attempted to hire and bring a cold caller in the past and maybe it didn't work out, I really hope today's session is going to provide some insights, provide tips, and maybe cause you to potentially reconsider implementing the role. Because I really want to stress that, in my opinion, we want to separate the role and the need of having an appointment setter from the person actually doing the job, right? I feel the role itself is very important in helping to grow your business. The challenge, and I think everybody can agree, the challenge is finding the right person to take on that role and to be successful at it. And it is a challenge. I'm not going to lie. A lot of MSPs that I've talked to, they will admit that they cycle through cold callers quite regularly, because there's only a certain type of person that's going to be good at it. Talking to our own inside sales, we call them SDR, sales development representatives, talking to our own SDR managers, they keep the rec open all the time. They are always looking to hire more SDRs for our organization, because the key is really trying to find that right person. But if you can find that right person and have a good structure in place to train them, that's going to be a positive thing. And then if they don't happen to work out, at least you have this structure already in place that you can go on. And so if you're quick to recognize that the person that you've hired isn't the right person, there's a little bit of consolence there that you can let them go, but you can find somebody else because you have that structure already in place. So the cold calling motion can work, but really as long as if it's implemented correctly. All right, so again, this slide, you've seen it before if you attended my session on the marketing side. We went through it on Tuesdays. This is our marketing and sales funnel that, again, outlines the buying journey a customer takes from a suspect where that company, that prospect doesn't know you at all. They don't know that you exist, all the way to a paying customer and a loyal advocate. And I'm bringing it up again today because we're still talking about lead gen and how to create high quality leads for your marketing funnel. But this time we're leveraging the sales motion to help augment the marketing side of things, because all the marketing in the world, it's not going to help fill that funnel if there's no one on the sales side proactively reaching out and engaging with those prospects. And a cold calling motion would benefit immensely from having a consistent and systematic marketing strategy in place to kind of help build that awareness and interest in the marketplace about your company. And at the end of the day, it's important to have someone doing that telemarketing role. And their success really is going to come from making sure we're hiring the right person, making sure we're giving them the right training, both initially at the beginning as we're onboarding them, and then ongoing training as they become more ingrained into the role. Then ensuring that we provide them with the right tool sets, the right resources, and that we are backing their efforts with a consistent marketing plan that's going to work to continue to build out the brand and build out the awareness. And so both motions, that marketing motion and that telemarketing sales motions, are really needed if, again, your goal is to grow your MSP and kind of take it to that next level, again, beyond what word of mouth and referrals can provide. And so really the first big question that you need to make if you decide that you do want to add this role into your organization is, do you want to outsource this activity to a third-party company or a third-party appointment setting agency, or do you hire internally and bring someone in as an employee of our organization, to be included as part of the sales team? And it's nice to see that 67%, 2/3 said that they have that person that they brought in house, and because that's really kind of the big decision that you need to make. One, you need to make the decision, yes, we're going to get this role, but then where do you go and find that person? How do you implement that role? So looking at the benefits of outsourcing, again, I'd be really curious to speak afterwards to the 2/3 that have it in-house. Looking at the partners that I've spoken with who have leveraged cold calling as part of their lead gen, they have admitted they cycle through cold callers, and they cycle through cold callers on a somewhat fairly regular basis. It's just the nature of the role, unfortunately, I think. So the cold calling motion and getting that spun up internally, it can be a money burner. It can be a time burner, trying to find and interview and hire, support, and train every new staff member as they cycle in and cycle out of your company. It can consume a lot of money, time, and energy for you. And as the business owner, you already have enough on your plate, right? With all the other hats that you're wearing, without adding a potentially exhaustive management layer to it. So the benefits of leveraging an agency is that they have all that specialized expertise already, in the hiring and in the training of their agents. And then it becomes their responsibility to continually refine and hone those sales methodologies and their training tactics to give their clients the best possible outcomes, which is to help generate new leads for you for your sales funnel. And in addition to the fact that, they manage their own staff, which you don't have to because they're not yours, they also have the latest technology, the latest software solutions in place. So you don't need to actually go out and make those investments in those pieces either. So they have the technology, they handle the people, and they have the processes in place for the role. Whereas you as the business owner, if you take on that task of bringing the appointment setter role in-house, you need to have a lot of patience in who you hire, and you need to accept the fact that it can take up to a year for that new employee to really begin contributing to the growth of your company. And you are still required to pay them, this whole time while they're trying to ramp up. Whereas with the leveraging an outsourced agency, you really don't have to worry about that ramp up process. They have the experienced, knowledgeable staff theoretically ready to go right out of the gates for you. And then working with an outside appointment setting agency, they do tend to have much higher activity standards than maybe a typical in-house employee would have. But this is because this is all that team would focus on. There isn't the chance, like there could be with an internal person, that they get dragged into doing other tasks within the company, which would ultimately distract them from their cold calling duties. Because with an outsourced agency, their employees are expected to be on the phone working for you 6-7 hours a day, completing between 10 and 14 dials an hour, 110 dials a day, 2,300 dials a month, and those are real high standards. And can you enforce, or do you even have the appetite to enforce standards like that? And then due to economies of scale, because they're not your direct employees, you can opt to have maybe a few agents working on your behalf at any one time, because maybe you're working on a big campaign, or maybe you're hosting a big event. So you would benefit from having that increased number of dials that are being made, because that's going to increase the likelihood of getting higher attendance or more sales. Whereas if you did bring that role in-house, from a budgetary standpoint, you're likely only able to afford one person to start. And so, for those, that are in talking to partners, if they brought in the cold caller or that role, a lot of the times they did outsource first because it made sense to them. They didn't know what they didn't know. And so they leveraged an outsourced agency to kind of show them the ropes. And that allowed them to then focus on the core pieces of their business, without having to spend that time initially managing that rotating door of staff, which can be time consuming. But given all that I just said, and again, I'd be very interested to hear the feedback from some of you on the line. A lot of our partners do decide to bring that appointment setting function in-house, which is evident from our poll results. I've had conversations with partners where, again, they started out using the agency, but it didn't work out well for them. They didn't get the results they wanted, despite all of the claims that they were promised by these different agencies. But because they still saw value in the role and the benefits that the role had in their lead gen activities, they decided to go ahead and make the investment and hire someone internally to handle the sales motion. And that's really what the remainder of this bootcamp session is going to be all focused on. What do you need to do to build and develop a successful telemarketing function in-house? Because there's some really good benefits of hiring in-house. You're going to get better integration with your in-house sales team. They can attend your sales meetings. They can work with you. They can work with your outside sales staff if you have anybody on staff to get a really good understanding of your company, your industry, your customers. This is really firsthand knowledge that an outside agency, they just can't get about you, your organization, and your customers. And you're also going to get better brand control and message ownership. By bringing that function in-house, you don't have to worry about things getting lost in translation, because you're the employer. You can control that script, you can control the messaging, and you can quickly make corrections in delivery if you feel that your appointment setter is misunderstanding, or maybe they might be misrepresenting your message. You have that luxury to make changes very quickly if you see something going off course. And if you hire to bring a person in-house, they can turn out to be this really amazing individual, and they could be a candidate for internal promotion into other areas of your business as you grow. They can learn your business really from the ground up, and you can mold them into the type of employee you want them to be through your training and through your internal culture. And that is what's worked really well for us at Enable. I always joke that yes, we sell software, but we could sell widgets and I think we would be just as successful, because we are a sales engine. We are a sales machine here at Enable. And so we've had a lot of our own inside sales reps, SDRs, that we've hired over the years, and they've gone on to being account managers, senior managers, directors, and even senior directors in Enable over the years. So again, if you do decide to bring the investment and hire internally, there's some definitive traits that you do want to look for that I feel make up a good cold caller. Non-technical in nature, I have listed as number one. And I think there's a belief out there in past conversations that I've had with partners that you need to find someone who's technical to do this role. And I feel that's not the case. I actually feel that you want to do the opposite, that you really don't want anyone technical for this role, because the primary goal of the cold caller, it's just to book the appointment for a phone call or a video call for yourself, if you're the business owner, if you're handling the sale, or for the account executive. And that's really it. That person is not expected to sell. They're not expected to talk technical with anyone, because if you think about it, you want this person engaging with business owners, and business owners are generally not technical themselves. So having a technical person reaching out to speak to a non-technical business owner about how your services can help improve their business, I just don't think is necessary. Really what you want is someone who has a great phone voice, wonderful phone mannerisms. They should be outgoing, they should be engaging, they should genuinely really like talking to people. And you want them to have a positive attitude. You want them to be resilient. There's a lot of rejection that's going to be coming at them on a daily basis. And so you want them to have those broad shoulders so that they can rebound quickly from that rejection and not take the rejection personally. And another one that I feel is really important is you want them to have what I call this sense of curiosity. There's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of psychology that comes into the play with the role of cold caller, or even sales for that matter. So you want someone that's willing to learn, willing to grow. You want them open to feedback and open to coaching so that they can improve and become better in that role. And you want someone that can take the initiative, can be a self-starter, and you need someone that's organized. Because even though their initial goal, their main goal, their primary goal is to book an appointment with the decision maker, if that doesn't happen, you want them taking good notes on how that conversation, how did that call go with prospects? And you want those notes to get into your CRM for follow-up for next time, because there will be follow-up. You're never calling into an organization once and making it a one and done activity. And then knowing that it's generally going to take many attempts to connect with the business owner or connect with the key decision maker that you need to connect with. You want someone that can be patient, persistent. You want them to be able to persevere and keep going even when they fail to make immediate connections with the prospect. And so I've just kind of thrown out some interview questions here to consider, when vetting, your potential candidates. Again, you really are looking for someone who has great communication skills and who's upbeat and engaging. So just some initial questions here, always good to know what they know about the MSP industry. Ask them what their experience is in working in customer service and telemarketing. Are they comfortable making cold calls to prospects? And I've had a couple of partners say, well, you're interviewing for a cold caller. Why would you put that question in as an interview question? Because I really feel it's important that you want to emphasize the point that this is what the job is. You know, this is what you're hiring for, and this is what they're interviewing for. Their job is to be on the phone and make cold calls. That's the job. And so you really want to delve into what qualities do they have that they can bring to this position to be successful. And then you may want to go into some, you know, tell me about a time when, or maybe get into some role plays. You know, a lot of telesales reps, they're faced with suspiciousness, right, when you call. So ask them, you know, how have they overcome this barrier, or how would they overcome this barrier? You know, have them tell you about a time when they were calling into a prospect and that prospect was disinterested in speaking with them. How did they handle that call? Have them tell you about some of their most difficult calls. You know, how were they able to navigate them? You know, how did they respond to a difficult prospect who didn't want to speak with you and just wanted to get you off the phone? Because there is a lot of rejection in sales, and especially in this type of position, how do they cope with rejection? We're going to go through some scripts later on in today's session. So maybe you might want to provide them with a script that's going to be used during the call. Ask for their feedback. What do they like about it? You know, what do they don't like about it? Is there anything that they would add or anything that they would change? And also because a big chunk of the role is going to be them having to find and source their own leads. Like, obviously it's expected that you're going to help them with the leads for people to call, but there's also the expectation there that they're going to have to find and do the legwork to find their own leads. So what tactics have they used in the previous positions to find new leads to help build up their call lists? And there's going to be KPIs, there's going to be metrics assigned to this role so that you can measure their success. So are they experienced working with quotas? You know, how have they managed to meet them? You know, how successful were they in meeting them? And if they were behind, how did they adjust their tactics to kind of catch up? So just some sample questions there. And then another question that I get a lot of the times is, you know, where do I find, you know, a potential cold caller? You know, where can I find an inside salesperson? And this one's really tough, you know, talking to different partners. You know, partners have told me that their personal channels worked really well. They've gone to their inner circle, they've asked their employees and done referrals that way. You know, if they know anybody who might be looking for a job, there might be social posts either on Facebook or LinkedIn. I know our managers, you know, for all of our departments here at Enable, you know, oftentimes we leverage LinkedIn for when we're looking for candidates. You know, maybe your other vendors, you know, maybe some of your vendors know of some good candidates. You know, I had a partner of mine that they had a cold calling motion. They had telemarketers. They used this certain piece of software. They decided to bring the individual in-house, and they went to their appointment setting software vendor and asked if there was anybody that they could recommend. And they actually could. They had someone that had worked for them, but they decided to go out on their own and start their own little part-time job. And the vendor was able to connect that partner with this person. And it's been going on for, I think, 6 to 8 months now, and it seems to be going pretty well. Local colleges and universities, I know we leverage this a lot here in Enable. We go to our local college, our local universities, and in our different locales, looking for new grads or co-op students, internships. So that has worked really well for us. Obviously, you got all your different job sites out there, you know, Indeed, Glassdoor, that type of thing. And then just recently I had a conversation with a partner around how they found their cold caller that I thought was quite brilliant. So I wanted to add it to the session today. And it came about because they took their own telemarketing phone calls. Like, I'm sure you get telemarketing calls each and every day. And for the most part, you've been probably avoiding them. Maybe if you are trying to find a new cold caller, a tactic could be go ahead and take those telemarketing calls, because you never know. the person on the other end of the line may be your new employee. Because that's exactly what happened to one of my partners. They decided that they wanted to hire somebody internally to handle the telemarketing function, but they were having a tough time finding a quality person. During their search, they had this woman who was trying to sell them, I think, some sort of password management software. And this woman called about 25 or 30 times, different times, attempting to speak to my partner just to set up an appointment and take him through a demo. But obviously, my partner has a receptionist. He has a gatekeeper. And this receptionist felt so bad, that my partner wouldn't take the call or return her call or take a meeting, that the receptionist finally convinced him, like, for gosh sakes, can you just take the appointment with her so she'll stop calling? And so he did. He relented. He took the call. He took the appointment. And he was so impressed with how she handled the call and how she conducted herself that he ended up offering her a job right on the phone, to come work for him, because he was so impressed with her perseverance and her persistence. So, moral of the story is, if you're looking to hire your own internal person and you can't find anybody, I know you're getting cold called several times a day, several times a week. Maybe look at poaching somebody from somebody else, because you just might find your next employee that time. All right, so we'll just stop for a moment, see if there's any questions. I don't see any in the question panel. So we'll give it one moment, just in case anybody's typing fast to get it in there. Okay, no problem. If anything comes up, again, please put it into the question panel. I do make it a point to stop periodically through the presentation to address any that might come up. All right, so continuing on. So just to play devil's advocate here, I've had partners that they've had appointment setters in the before and it didn't work out. And so the question that I asked them is, what sort of training did you have in place to help ensure that the person got off on the right foot and was successful? Was their training structured? Was their process for onboarding their telemarketer, was it well documented? Or was it something that was more ad hoc and then maybe done on the fly? And then as that person progressed in the job, what sort of regular and ongoing coaching, what sort of feedback, what sort of training was provided ongoing? And this is really important, because preparation, documentation, proper training, that's going to improve success. That's going to improve your retention, because this really needs to be treated like any other role within your organization that you have. So whether you've had the appointment setter before, or maybe it's something that you're thinking of implementing, you do want to make sure that you take the time and make the investment in creating a formal and documented training program, because this is going to ensure that the person you've hired has every possible advantage given to them to succeed in this role. And you want to provide them with a clear learning path, and you want to set clear expectations for the role. And then for some reason, if they don't happen to work out and you do need to let them go, because you have something already documented and in place from a training perspective, you can ideally then get that next person ramped up and primed for the role much more quickly. So things that I feel should be included in your training program, first and foremost, I have listed at the top a mentor. Whether it's you as the business owner, someone from the sales team, somebody is needed to help train in this individual and monitor their progress. And their chances of success are going to be vastly improved if you are able to provide your trainee with some sort of sales mentor. Again, I keep going back to, I've been in the company for 17 years. I've had a lot of different roles, my last role being in sales and account management. And I have had the benefit of having a couple of really good different mentors over the years that have been instrumental in helping me reach the level of success that I have today. And I have greatly benefited from their coaching and their feedback and their oversight. So I really encourage you to ensure that you match your new telemarketer with someone more senior, either from the sales team if you have that luxury, or yourself as the business owner, if you don't have anybody else in that position. You also want to provide a clear understanding and definition of your ideal client profile and of the target verticals that you want them to pursue. And in my boot camp on Tuesday around marketing, I think I did a 35 minute session on how do you determine your ideal client profile if you haven't got that, kind of marked down. And I bring this up because it was a conversation point that came out of another conversation that I had with a partner that was struggling with their telemarketing motion. And I'm going to use the vertical here as an example around professional services. You want to ensure that your trainee has a clear definition around what do you mean by professional services, and what industries are you specifically wanting to target. As professional services, that's what I consider an umbrella term. You can't really assume that your trainee understands what you mean by that. And again, I bring this point up because of a conversation I had with a partner earlier this year. We were talking about their challenges that they were experiencing with their cold caller, and they were wondering, really, should we keep them or should we cut our losses and let him go? Because they felt he's been in the position for over 3 months now, and he hadn't really produced any tangible leads for the sales team. So we went into this conversation. I asked them about the training they provided and what sort of support they were providing. And I have to give them credit. They admitted that they really didn't have anything in place from a training perspective. But they did, in their minds, let them know who their ideal client was, and that they like to deal with businesses in the professional services arena. But in having this conversation with them, they never really explained what they meant by that catch-all term, professional services. And they were a little upset when their cold caller announced, one day after work, that he had spent, and he was very excited over this, he had spent the whole day cultivating a list of churches that he was going to call into the following day. And that's when it occurred to my partner that they didn't do a good job defining to their cold caller what they meant by the term professional services and what industries they specifically target. Because obviously churches, we would never classify as a professional service. So I bring this point up to make sure that within your training, you do a good job outlining who your ideal client is that you wish to target. Because again, part of the role is you're going to expect them to develop their own lists. And you don't want them developing lists and wasting time on businesses that you don't want to do business with in the first place. You also want to ensure that your cold caller has a clear understanding of your organization's vision, mission statements, that they can understand and recite your value prop statements and your elevator pitch around your services, and they can explain how your services best support your customers. And you want to train your appointment setter on how to properly prepare and how to structure their calls, because you want them to sound professional. You want them to sound knowledgeable. And so this is going to involve, providing them starter scripts, talk tracks so that they can open the calls and help guide the calls, as well as providing training around objection management techniques so that they know how to respond back to the typical types of objections that they're likely going to hear. And again, I promise you in a little bit, we're going to review some starter scripts. We're going to review some objection management techniques in a little bit more detail. So hang around for that one. You also want to line up opportunities to have your appointment setter shadow and maybe listen in on calls, so you can give them exposure on how the call delivery should go. Maybe you can connect them again with a sales individual or maybe yourself, so that they can hear how you deliver your value prop, how you deliver your elevator pitch to prospects. And you also want to arrange for some mock calls. You want to do some role plays so that they can really experience firsthand what challenges they could potentially face during their cold call. And you want to try and make these as difficult as possible. You want to prepare them for the tough situations that they are going to face. And you want to have them practice their delivery as much as possible, because that's really what's going to help build up their confidence. And if you can, and if you have the software that can do this, see if you can record their calls. Or if you don't have that ability because of your region, or you don't have the software, at least schedule time in your day so that you can listen in on their side of the call. And so you can then provide feedback that you can review. Maybe if you're doing daily one-on-ones at the end of the day, or in the morning as a morning huddle, or at a minimum at your weekly one-on-ones that you're having. And you want to make sure that you're setting clear activity targets, clear KPIs, and you want to review those regularly with your cold caller so they understand how they're going to be tracked and measured. And again, I mentioned you will need to provide your appointment setter with lists to start, but you also need to have them building lists on their own, and they need to be able to curate lists of their own. So you want to provide some training and some guidance around that. And if you're using any sort of software automation tools as part of your cold calling motion, obviously you want to train them on how to use that as well. But even if you aren't using anything formal, and just an Excel spreadsheet would work if you're just starting out, you just want to have a process in place on what is that structure that the cold caller is going to follow to track the calls that you're making, because you want them documenting what calls they are making, who are they making it to, what transpired, what was the outcome of that interaction. And this is critical because, kind of going back to my point where the cold caller role can be a potential rotating door, you have to assume that the person calling back into that business 6 months later is likely not going to be the same person that made the call today. So you want to provide a mechanism, a structure, you want to have a process in place on how to track and document all calls that are being made for future follow-up. And then, my last kind of key little tidbit here is don't feel that you need to do this alone. Check out your vendors, see what training they have to offer. Obviously here at Enable, I knew, or taking a look at our training, we didn't really have anything focused so far in the MSP Institute on the role of cold calling and how to build up a cold calling motion. So, obviously leverage what we have with the Institute. This is being recorded. It is going to be uploaded into the Institute. But there's also professional training out there that you can leverage. I've been told that True Methods, Gary Pica's organization, offers training specifically for cold callers that I've had some partners take their employees through. If you do happen to use any sort of appointment setting software, I had a partner that was using a software called Contact Science, and they offered training and scripting as well. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask. And then as part of the initial training, ensure that they are comfortable with how to prepare for a call, because with advanced prep, it is going to help maximize the probability for success. It's going to help them sound more professional. It's going to help them sound more knowledgeable when they're speaking to their prospects. So looking at what does that pre-call prep look like? Always easiest if you can have them pick a vertical or pick a specific customer type to focus on at a time. And if you are involved in servicing multiple verticals, break those verticals down and create verticalized call scripts, verticalized talk tracks, verticalized value prop statements for each of those different verticals that you support. And going back to my last session, you want to do a good job researching each vertical. Really work to understand that market. What are the common business challenges, the struggles that industry is facing, and then map out how your services can specifically help them. And that research, go and leverage your existing customers, solicit their experience, their feedback. Why do they like working with you? Because then you can use all of this to help formulate your messaging, and you can work that feedback into your call scripts. Kind of going back to my last session, ask your good customers specifically, what do they like best about working with you? See if they can provide you with examples around how you have helped their business. And then be sure to ask permission if you can use these examples, or if you can name drop and use their name when creating your call scripts. And while you're at it, you can also putting my marketing hat back on and my plug for marketing, ask if you can turn those examples into case studies or reviews or testimonials that you can use on your marketing or social activities. But I digress. By doing that or taking that verticalized approach, it will help with your overall calling efforts, and it's going to help make the calls more focused because you're focusing on one vertical at a time, which is going to make it more scalable, and it's going to become a repeatable process for you. And so it's going to allow your cold caller to really get into a groove as they're talking to the same types of businesses who are experiencing the same types of business challenges, same challenges or struggles, priorities, and you can focus the talk track around how you've helped resolve those business challenges for other businesses in the same vertical. And then once all of those businesses in that particular vertical have been called, well, then you just move on to a new vertical then and create a new set of call scripts, with a new set of messaging that they can focus on. And, for each company within the selected vertical, the research that you want to do ahead of time, you obviously want to find the person or the group of people that you want to speak to, because you really want to work to personalize that approach. That's really what's going to help you in the end. So how do you find contact names of prospects that you want to speak to? Obviously, first and foremost, you're going to go review their website. You're going to look at their about page, and because sometimes businesses will list kind of the key people there, the key management people on their about page. Review their company information on LinkedIn. Where else are they on social media? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? Review their org structure, as I mentioned, if you can find it. Research the different titles that are used in the various industries that you're planning on targeting so that you know who's important and who you should connect with. As an example, in law firms, they use titles like managing attorney, managing partner, senior partner, and that highlights key decision makers that your telemarketer can hone in on and try and make connections with. Whereas looking at other industries like nonprofits, for an example, top executives in that industry, they're often referred to as directors. You may also want to Google, Google's our friend, right? Google their business for any noteworthy news items. So again, you can work to personalize that call. Maybe you've noticed through your Googling efforts that they've won a recent award, or maybe they took part in a special community event. These are all different things that you can bring up during the call. And there's also sites like crunchbase.com. I've only just leveraged kind of the free version of it, but sometimes there seems to be additional information there about the company that can kind of help round out your knowledge. And if you're not familiar with Crunchbase, it's really a site, and you can pay for more detailed information, but again, I just always use the free version. It's a site that can provide more in-depth data on all sorts of companies in any geography and any industry. And then just as proper training is going to improve success, I'm going to put my plug in for marketing again here. Having a proper marketing strategy in place, that's going to work as well, to, again, helping to increase and build awareness in your company. It is going to help improve the success rate of your telemarketing motion because it's going to really work to help warm up those cold calls. So looking at things like networking, through the Chamber of Commerce or BNI group, it's really important to get in front of other local businesses or hear about other businesses that might be opening up that you can reach out to and introduce yourself to. Obviously volunteering, other community outreach, any lunch and learns, in-person events, virtual webinars that you're planning on that your cold caller can promote. Really, any campaigns that you're working on where you're sending out a piece of mail like a postcard, that's also a great way that your appointment setter, they can reach out and follow up on and help promote. And any marketing activity that you can implement that can act as a springboard for your appointment setter to follow up on, and that they can reference during their call is a really good marketing activity to pursue. Because I like to think it's easier to call into a business, and it helps to reduce call anxiety because you're giving that employee, that telemarketer, a focus. You're giving them a purpose for a call. They're just not calling out of the blue. So if you decide that you're running a lunch and learn or running some sort of virtual event, the goal then for that telemarketer becomes talking about the benefits of the event and getting people to register. Maybe you're doing a campaign focused on security and business risk mitigation, and maybe you sent out a postcard offering some sort of complimentary security analysis. Then it becomes easier because your cold caller can use this as a springboard and as a reason to call. See if they have any questions around the postcard. See if they have any questions around their own cyber hygiene or any concerns that they have around their own protection. And would they like to schedule a complimentary analysis? And then obviously, the more traditional marketing approaches would work. And then social media. I talked a lot about social media and cultivating an online presence and how you can use that to help build leads from a marketing perspective. So not going to talk about it too much today because I did a whole 2-hour boot camp the other day, and that is going to be uploaded into the MSP Institute as well, so that you can if you're new to it or if you're not doing a lot when it comes to social media, you may want to check that one out. Okay. And then just like training and marketing is going to help improve your cold calling success, making sure that you have the proper tools and the proper processes in place as well will help ensure success. So again, whether you have something formal, whether you plan on investing in an appointment setting software, like Contact Science, like CallRail, or if you have a CRM system, the idea here is that you really need to have something in place in which to track call activities, track outcomes. You want a place where you can really store all that data that's being collected on prospects as your appointment setter is making calls and engaging with them. Because again, you have to expect that the person calling today is not going to be the same person calling back in the next 6 to 8 months. And you can go out and purchase lists. We've had partners do that. But there's also a lot of free things that you can do, tactics that are free that your appointment setter can use to help generate their own lists. So if you can purchase lists, data.com, which I think is now owned by Salesforce, Hoover's, Dun & Bradstreet, ZoomInfo, InfoUSA, nextsales.com. The local Chamber of Commerce, they're especially good at providing names of new businesses, especially those that are starting up in the area. LinkedIn, you can use or add a feature called Sales Navigator to your LinkedIn account. I know our managers for the SDR team have a license of this that they use. It can be a little expensive, so I think it's just what the managers have, but then they can build lists and give it to our SDRs because you're able to narrow the search down by city, state, country, business type, or any role within. We've also had partners say that they've scanned the different job sites. They've scanned the different job listings looking for companies who are trying to hire for an internal IT resource. And so they're looking to bring it in-house. Maybe you can reach out and talk to them and plant that seed that maybe they don't need to look at bringing that function in-house. Maybe they can look at outsourcing the management to an MSP and talk about the benefits of outsourcing with an MSP. Obviously, Google, using Google Maps to look for businesses in your area that match your ideal client profile, or again, do a search within a particular city, state, or country. Looking at partner lists, association lists, especially by verticals. Here I'm thinking about looking at any verticals where there might be associations connected to it. So if you go to the association's website, you'll see the listings there. I'm thinking dental and legal do this a lot. Like if you look at the dental or the legal associations in your area, a lot of the time, all of the dentists that are part of that association is going to be listed there. All of the lawyers that are part of that association are typically listed there. So a quick and easy way to gather names. Obviously, leveraging your vendors again, Cisco, Microsoft. If you're involved in supporting any sort of line of business software, they might be able to help you there. SITcode.com, US Census, census.gov. Find the SIT code for the types of businesses that you want to target, look them up. And then just looking at any of your past prospects, your past leads, maybe any deals that you've lost. Look at your existing marketing lists. All those types of organizations should be called on periodically just to see how are things are going, checking in. I talked about in my marketing boot camp, Paul Green, a fantastic MSP marketing expert, uses this term called inertia loyalty. It takes a lot of work for a business to switch an MSP. And most businesses today already have an MSP that they use. So marketing is about kind of staying top of mind, because maybe something's going to happen. Maybe all of a sudden their MSP that they're using today is no longer cutting it, and they're going to want to start looking for somebody else. If you can make it a point to periodically go back and check in on those customers, you may be calling on a day when this is the day they've decided I'm looking, and you are calling at the right time. So make it a point to kind of scrounge and look at all your past prospects, your past leads, and make it a point to go back and call them. And then you may want to have a gap list created. And what do I mean by this? Are there any new verticals that you want to do business with outside of the existing verticals that you're doing today? Any new markets? Do you want to go up market? Do you want to, maybe look at doing some co-managed activities? Include your cold caller in that strategy, provide guidance to them, and have your cold caller do that research into new verticals or new markets. And then when a prospect completes a form on your website or makes an inquiry through an email, who is tasked with calling these people? If you don't have anybody tasked, this should be the job of your cold caller. Those inbound inquiries should be responded to immediately. And, I thought this was more of a given, but I came across a stat where it found that 50% of inbound leads from some sort of web form or some sort of email inquiry, it goes unanswered because there was no one being notified or there was no one tasked with responding to these leads. And these are the best kind of leads. This proves that your marketing efforts are working to help fill that top of the funnel. So you just want to make sure that you have somebody from the sales team aligned so that they can respond to these leads and help navigate them through the funnel. And that really should all start with your cold caller. And then another idea that was recently, I was attending a workshop, is there's software out there that you can attach to your website that tracks all the visitors to your site. It can identify, which companies visited your site, provide you the IP address, provide you the information. So even if they don't do anything while they're visiting your site, you can get that information and you can reach out and call them. All right, so we'll just take another moment, see if there's any additional questions, because next we're going to get into the anatomy of a cold call and into those scripts that I have been promising. But before we start, we'll just see if there's any. I'm not seeing any. All right, perfect. All right, so let's chat about the anatomy of a cold call. As mentioned, the primary goal of your call is to set an appointment with the prospect so that you can discuss their needs and maybe work to identify if there's potential business opportunities there. And so we want to use the call to determine if this prospect is going to be a good fit and if there is the ability to create enough interest in your services so that your telemarketer can go and secure that appointment. So looking at the anatomy of a cold call, we really can look at it and break it down into 4 different parts. And this is going to be good information to review as you work to modify. Like, I'm going to give you the call scripts, but it's going to work to help as a springboard to customizing them for you. So part 1, all about breaking their preoccupation, and this part involves thinking about what's that opening line going to be that's going to pique their interest. And this really goes back to before starting your calls, you want to do your prep and have a good understanding around why are you calling? What's your reason for your outreach? What do you want to accomplish with that call? Are you calling in regards to a specific campaign that you're running. Maybe you're doing a campaign on security or data protection. Are you calling as a follow-up to something that maybe has already been sent out? Maybe there's been an email, maybe there's been a mailer, maybe there's been some sort of newsletter. Maybe you're calling to help populate an event that you're hosting. Is this a virtual event? Is this an in-person event? Because remember, when you call in, the prospect that you're trying to get in touch with more than likely is in the middle of doing something else, something probably important. So it's important for you to have a good opening line that's going to break that preoccupation and stop them from thinking, whatever it is that they're thinking about at the time, and hopefully turn their attention to you. Part 2, this is the knowledge proof. This is, after you have your, I'm going to call it killer opening line, hopefully you now have your prospect's attention. So this part of the call script should include evidence that you know something about them. And so that's why picking, and focusing on one vertical at a time and doing your research on that one particular vertical ahead of time is so important, so that you can maybe uncover 2 or 3 different business services or business struggles that are relevant to that industry, so that you can talk to them about how you support other businesses in that same industry. Looking at part 3, this is the benefits. At this point, hopefully the prospect should see that you understand their business, that you understand their business priorities, and hopefully they're interested enough to hear what else you have to say. So now your script must outline what are the business benefits, what are the advantages that you can bring to them by working with you. And then this last part of your script, really should include asking for the appointment. Hopefully you've demonstrated to your prospect that you understand their business, that you understand their industry. You've provided proof that there's a fit between the 2 organizations. And so you want to close by scheduling an appointment at some point in the near future, so that you can have a more comprehensive conversation with them. So following the anatomy of a cold call structure, my goal was to provide some sample starter scripts that you can use, again, as jumping off points, and take these as you will, modify them so that you're really personalizing them for you, your business, and for your telemarketer. Because having various scripts prepared ahead of time, that is going to assist your cold caller, and it's really going to be fundamental to their success. And again, while these scripts that I'm going to be showing, they're meant to assist, they're meant to benefit, they should be rehearsed repeatedly, and that's why I recommended in the training that you implement some sort of mock call type of format, because you want your telemarketer to be rehearsing these repeatedly, practicing these repeatedly until they sound as natural as possible, because you do not want them coming across in any way, shape, or form as being scripted. So really look at these as being a guide to help navigate the flow of the conversation. And so in attempts to break that preoccupation when you first call out and connect, again, I always feel it's easier to have your telemarketer make a call and make that call because they're following up on something that was sent out ahead of time, to your prospect base. Again, maybe it was a mailer, maybe it was an email around a certain campaign, maybe you're running an educational event that you might be holding. And so again, that's why leveraging other marketing activities in conjunction with your cold calling efforts are going to be helpful, because it's going to give your telemarketer, again, that purpose, that reason for calling. And it's going to help them feel that they have something of value to offer that prospect, as opposed to them just interrupting them by calling them out of the blue, or as my husband calls it, blowing in a phone call. So one big tip, if you're going to use this approach, when doing any sort of mail out, send out the mailers in small batches, like maybe 25 or 50 at a time. If you have a list of 500 or 1,000, don't mail out all 500 or 1,000 at a time. You want to send out your mailers in manageable chunks, as this is really going to allow your telemarketer the time to call into each individual business in a timely manner, while that mailer is still really fresh in their mind. Because if you send out all 500 or send out all 1,000 at once, your telemarketer is never going to get through calling all of those names and all of those businesses in a timely manner. And we're thinking a week or 10 days. So really only send out what your caller can realistically handle in a week to 10-day timeline. Okay, so again, a couple of approaches to some opening lines that you could try using, when you have sent out something to your prospect base ahead of time, and now you want to reach out and follow up. One is, I'm calling it a more considerate approach, while the second one is a little bit more direct. And the second one I actually lifted off of LinkedIn, because there was somebody that I'm connected with on LinkedIn who that's their job. They run an agency for cold calling, and he kind of put in the comments, this is what he uses, the second approach, the direct approach that he has found has worked really well. So I wanted to throw both approaches in for consideration. So approach one, I'm calling it the considered approach. So again, hi, could I speak to Mark Duke, please? Hopefully you get Mark, or hopefully you're passed over to Mark by the gatekeeper. Hi, Mark, my name is Stephanie Hammond. You want to pause for a second to give your prospects some time to think. Stephanie, goodness, do I know this person? And then you continue after that slight pause. I'm calling from Primetime Inc. And then pause again just for a moment, because that prospect naturally is going to begin thinking, primetime, should I know them? Then continue on with your opening line. You would have received our, insert whatever name of your mailer here, maybe it's a postcard, letter, webinar, the other day, and I wanted to reach out and follow up on any questions you may have. So opening line. Approach number two, again, the one that I'm calling more direct, that I lifted off of LinkedIn. Hi, could I speak to Mark Duke, please? Again, hopefully you get Mark. Hi, Mark, this is Stephanie Hammond. Again, pause for that second, give your prospects some time to think about where they might know you from. And then after that slight pause, I'm calling from Primetime Inc. Again, just a slight pause, again, while they're thinking where they might know you from. And then here's the direct approach. I know we have never spoken before, but I'll get right to the point if you'd be willing to take my call. I'm calling about the card, letter, invite, whatever, that we sent last week, and I wanted to follow up on any questions you may have. Okay, so two different approaches, but with any approach that you use with your opening line, the idea here is that you don't want to blurt it out all at once. You don't want to blurt your pitch out all at once without giving your prospect time to process. Or you will lose them within the first 30 seconds of the call. So instead of rapidly pitching at your prospect and kind of doing that verbal diarrhea all at once, slow down, enunciate, and clearly communicate who you are. You want to give your words some weight and allow them to sink in, because really when it comes to cold calling, the tonality of your voice is really crucial. So a few statements that you should not include as part of your opening lines for a cold call. Did I catch you at a bad time? It may seem that you're trying to, be considerate and you're demonstrating respect for the prospect's time with this opening question. A lot of time it's going to backfire, and it's going to end up soliciting more of a negative response. So it's going to really do the exact opposite of what you intended it to do. And there was one study that I found that, if you use this statement, did I catch you at a bad time? It's actually going to make you 40% less likely to book that meeting, because obviously the easy answer is going to be yes, or yes, you did catch me at a bad time. So try avoiding using this as part of your script. Another line to avoid, do you have a minute to talk? Again, a very commonly asked question. And again, I can understand that you want to be respectful, of that prospect's time, but this is another line that's really opening up the door for an easy way out, as no one really has time or wants to hear a sales pitch. So when crafting your opening lines, you want to make sure that you phrase it in a way that doesn't give your prospect a chance to say no, or gives them an easy way out of having a conversation with you. Okay. And, if you gain success with your opening line to break that preoccupation, the next part of your call script should ensure that you're leading with the right types of questions so that you can demonstrate knowledge and highlight the benefits of your services. And you want to ensure that that you're phrasing your questions in more of a form of a how type of question or a what type of question. And again, this is really where your vertical focused pre-call prep is going to be really critical so that it can help make your questions relevant to the prospect and the industry that they're in. So again, some examples listed here. I see A, B, and C are taking place in your industry. How are you being affected by that? Or, several of our customers, insert whatever vertical you're in, whether it's the dental vertical, engineering vertical, legal vertical. Several of our clients in the legal vertical are struggling with X and Y. How is your company dealing with that? Or our clients are looking to us to help them improve, again, insert whatever business challenge, they're helping them improve their overall network security for their organization. What specific areas of your business are you looking to improve? So again, how type of questions or what type of questions? We really don't want to ask why type of questions because, you think about it, whenever someone asks you why, you're automatically put on the defensive. That can sound a little bit aggressive, especially in the beginning if you're trying to build out that relationship. No one really likes to be challenged. Okay. So then, hopefully if the conversation is going well, we do want to steer the call towards asking that appointment, booking that appointment so that we can continue the conversation on a little bit deeper manner. So maybe the conversation has been focused on cybersecurity, and maybe the prospect is doubting whether they're properly protected or not. So the next step is to book an appointment with maybe the security expert that you might have on staff to conduct a more thorough security review. So some sample scripting here. Look, do you know what, Mark? I think it'd be great to get you on a video call with Nathan Smith. Nathan's our founder. He's an IT cybersecurity expert, and he can talk to you about our security best practices that we recommend to protect your employees and your business. It will take about 20 minutes, to start. He can talk about what he has been implementing at other client sites from a security standpoint. And he can go over, what some of the next steps are going to be if you felt that our services might be beneficial to you, And then do you have some time on Tuesday at 10 or Friday at 2, for a 20-minute call to review your current security setup, something like that. Okay. And then I wanted to include a script for voicemails because inevitably you're going to have to leave probably a lot of voicemail messages during your day. So it's just as important to have a script rehearsed and ready to go in the event you do get a voicemail and you have to leave a voicemail message for a prospect. So again, you want to make sure that you're speaking clearly and that you're speaking slowly. But we want our message to be short and concise, and the purpose is we want it to spark an interest because we want them to call you back. So your voicemail, it's not a commercial for your organization. You're not selling when you leave them a voicemail. Your sole intent really is just to inform, because voicemail, it can be a selling tool if it's used correctly. It can help increase your connection rates, with your prospects. So how you structure your voicemail really does count. And so don't ignore, this aspect of your cold calling training, and build a script for this as well. And so a sample script here, start off by introducing yourself and establish a connection if possible. So, hi, this is Stephanie from Primetime Inc. I learned about your company from one of our existing Primetime Inc. customers who uses our services, John Doe from XYZ company. Okay. Then state your purpose and the value behind the call. The reason for my call is, after researching your organization, my team has some ideas on how we can possibly help you, insert whatever business struggle or business benefit that you may know about for their particular industry. And then maybe share an insight. We have X number of customers in insert vertical. that utilizes our services, and I would like to see if it would make sense for us to have a quick conversation and see if there are any areas within your business where our services might be beneficial. And then obviously you want to add your contact information. I can be reached at 123-456-7890. And then go ahead and repeat your contact information. Again, my name is Stephanie Hammond from Primetime Inc. My direct line is 123-456-7890. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Thanks so much. And then if you have it, try and follow up with an email as well. Okay. So looking to see if there's any questions. Again, very quiet group. Okay. Again, if there's questions that come to you after the session today, at the end of the call, I'll have my contact information up there again as well. So, all right. Now, getting into objection management techniques that you can use and you want to build into your training for your cold calling. Because again, no one likes being cold called. And if your appointment setter is able to connect with a prospect on the phone, again, we want to do everything that we can to equip them for success. And it is inevitable that they are likely going to receive pushback as they begin engaging with your prospects. So you want to ensure that your telemarketer has scripted, well-prepared answers to the most common objections they're likely going to hear. And objections and pushback, I like to think of these as more of being a good thing. Objections, in all my years of sales, they actually work to help open the door because it allows your telemarketer to maybe then insert or highlight a few key benefits that your services can provide, which hopefully, with the good question or good benefit, creates that curiosity and hopefully motivates that prospect to maybe take the next step and schedule an appointment with you to discuss the services further. So I've listed, I think the most common objections that you will likely hear, and we have scripts for them and things that you can include in your training program. And so we'll go through each of them. So the first objection that I wanted to address is, sorry, but I've never heard of your company. And this type of objection, this basically means that you haven't done a good enough job marketing your organization to your target audience. And this lack of knowledge about your company in the marketplace, it really is something that's totally within your control. And I've talked about this previously, and I've talked about this in my marketing boot camp. Having an online social presence is critical in today's day and age. This is what you use to help build up your expertise and be perceived as that trusted advisor to your virtual audiences. So use this type of objection to deliver your elevator pitch, highlighting what problems your services will help solve for them. This is where if you can name drop, that's going to work really well, especially if you're servicing other customers in this same vertical. It will help create, kind of instant credibility, hopefully with them. Encourage them to go check out your website, go check you out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter if you have them. Invite them to follow you. Ask them to go check out your customer case studies, check out your reviews on Google My Business, check out your testimonials, because it's these types of social proof that's going to help familiarize your prospects with your organization. It's going to help hopefully alleviate a lot of the risk that they might be feeling in thinking about engaging with a business that they've never heard of before, especially if you're showing evidence in your feeds of other businesses in the same vertical that you've been supporting successfully. So possible response, we are Primetime Inc., and we help engineering firms in the metropolitan area remain protected from cyber attacks and other network breaches so that their employees can continue to work securely, really from anywhere and everywhere. We've actually been the preferred IT security provider for XYZ engineering company for over 5 years. And we helped them to avoid a costly breach last year because they were enrolled in our cybersecurity fundamentals program. So I would love it if we could, if you could check us out on LinkedIn, maybe start following us, maybe check out our website as we regularly post customer reviews and case studies there so that you can learn more about us and how we work with our customers. But I would also be happy to arrange a call, to maybe have you speak with our security specialist, and she can outline the different steps that we take to secure all of our customers from cyber attacks, just like we have with XYZ Engineering. And then, Betty's available either Monday at 2 or next Wednesday at 9, which day would work best for you. Okay. Another common objection that you're likely going to hear, we already have an MSP in place and we're not really looking to switch. I like this objection because, one, it tells us that at least we don't have to educate them on managed services. They're already familiar with the benefits an MSP provider can provide. So I think that's a good thing. But the bad news is, and this is more and more commonplace these days, they're using one of your competitors. Most businesses today likely already have an MSP that they're using. And so displacing an incumbent is typically a very difficult thing to do. So this is not going to be the time for your appointment setter to go into an exhaustive side-by-side narrative around how you're better, how you're different from your competitor. The main goal here is to really try and pique their curiosity about what they might be missing out on. So doing a discovery to find out, what you're up against. And this discovery, it will be invaluable to you, especially if you are able to secure that appointment to meet with them some sort of time in the future. So you want to make sure that all of your notes that are being taken, that they're being collected and added into your CRM for future reference. So a possible response when you hear this type of objection, that is great that you're taking the security and management of your network so seriously. Do you mind me asking who you're using today to kind of help with this important function? And then if they provide the name of their competitor, oh, that's awesome. That's great. Be excited over this. Don't ever disparage a competitor. You want to continue on and then say, ABC Company, they're a great organization from what I've heard about. Have you been satisfied with that relationship and the services that you've been receiving from them? As an example, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is awful and 10 is best in the world, how would you rate your partnership, your relationship with ABC Company? And so if they give you a rating of 8 to 10, congratulate them, ask them what they like best and what warranted them giving them such a high rating. And then you can use this information for, your own and maybe how you can improve your own MSP structure. If they provide a rating of, say 5 or below, maybe some follow-up questions that you can ask is, wow, that seems to be a very low score, to go and put some doubt in their mind. Can I ask specifically what made you give them a score of that low? The idea here is that hopefully it will get them talking about what issues they are experiencing with their existing MSP, which will again provide some great data that you can leverage throughout the sales process. And again, just make sure that you're documenting whatever's being heard or whatever's being told to you, because clients never like having to repeat, what they had to say. And then for you, you'll know what not to do should you earn their business. But regardless, work to set yourself up as a possible alternative should anything change from their end. So you could follow up and say something like, it's always good to have options available should anything change. I think it might benefit if we could spend 20 minutes, maybe on a follow-up call. We can share how we compare and contrast maybe to ABC Company. That way, should anything change, you can always consider us as your backup. Are you open in the next few weeks, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for a quick call? And then if they're not interested in speaking with you further, see if you can find out when their existing contract comes up for renewal. And maybe if it would be all right to reach back out and revisit the conversation at that time. And then hopefully they'll say yes. Make sure this is being diarized, and then make sure you reach out, a couple of months ahead of time of that renewal date, checking in, seeing how things are going, and if they would entertain a meeting at that point. And then lastly, never forget to use that as an opportunity to invite them to check out your website. Ask them to follow you on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. see if you can get an email address for them to use it for communication, because that's going to help start that virtual relationship with them and continue educating them about yourself and putting yourself in that position of authority through your content marketing. Okay. Next objection. Is this a sales call? How did you get my contact details? Remember, as an appointment setter, they're not calling to sell them, right? They're calling to see if your services might be a good fit to help address any business related challenges or struggles they might be facing at that moment. So a good response to this type of objection should be, excuse me, I'm not in any sales capacity here at Primetime. I actually support our marketing efforts. And I'm calling to see if network and infrastructure security is a concern for you, and if this is something that you're tasked with overseeing. Or say that you're calling as a result of an email marketing campaign or a direct marketing campaign, and leverage this approach to talk about it and stir familiarity and a sense of helpfulness, really. So just say that I'm following up on an email that we sent your way to see if IT security is an area that your team deals with. Can I take 60 seconds to tell you a bit about our company and how our customers benefit from a relationship with us, and just see if it might make sense to speak again at some point in the future. Okay. The next one, and I'm sure people have heard this lots of times. I know I'm pretty much using this one a lot when I get the calls from a personal perspective. I'm just too busy right now. And when a prospect uses this objection, what they often mean is, you're not a priority right now, and my time would be better spent elsewhere. And so the goal here is to really prove that you are a priority and your solution is worthy of their limited time. And so you can really leverage a two-prong approach to help manage this objection. So a possible response could be, I completely understand. Maybe this isn't a good time for you and it's not worth your time. But the last few people that I talked to, they actually said the exact same thing at first. But after a brief conversation, they were all pretty glad that they took the time to speak with me. Can I request just 3 short minutes to figure out, whether this is a wise investment of your time? And using a response like this, you're acknowledging the value of their time, you're empathizing with their situation, and by stating up front how much time you're requesting, a lot of prospects will give you 3 minutes to kind of make your case. So after you bought yourself a couple of minutes, ask some follow-up questions to help uncover the prospect's needs, which you can then use to help demonstrate your expertise. Again, kind of going back to that anatomy of a phone call. So, Mr. Customer, what's your number one priority at the moment? Because if you're like our most successful customers that we work with in dental vertical, your goal for next quarter is X. Does that fall in line with your organization? And then at this point, and salespeople have a really hard time doing this, you want to listen carefully. If your number one priority doesn't match theirs, ask permission to see if you can ask some additional follow-up questions, because the more opportunities that they have to discuss their growth goals with you, the more likely they are to stay on the line with you, giving you a better chance to understand what they do have time for, what is important to them. And then this way, you're in a better position to tailor your messaging to their specific needs and priorities. And then, the last step obviously is always asking if we can schedule that appointment, to discuss in greater detail how you can help address their priorities through some sort of your services. So, closing off like, I know you're busy and I want to be appreciative of your time. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Would it be possible to schedule an appointment in your calendar with our owner, and he can speak to you further about how Primetime Inc. has assisted our clients in helping them meet their primary business priorities like X and Y, or whatever the goal happens to be. But if you aren't able to get the prospect to speak, again, we want to be considerate of their time, and we want to maybe recognize the objection. That's the objection. They're just too busy. So take it at face value. So we can respond back with, when would a better time be to call back and discuss this? Or would it be okay if I sent you some information on our company just to keep in your files in the event that you do need to chat sometime in the future? And then with this approach, at least hopefully we're getting another email address that we can add to our database to help support our email marketing activities. Okay, thank you, but we have other priorities right now, and this is not one of them. The reason you might get this objection is that you've opened up with a generic value prop statement, and it doesn't really resonate with your prospect. You're not pushing any hot buttons with them. And I like to think that this speaks more directly and stresses the importance of proper prospect profiling and researching and qualifying your prospects before calling them, so that you have a really good understanding of their needs, challenges, priorities, so that you can customize your message to match those priorities. Because if you're going to use a generic one-size-fits-all messaging statement, I really feel that you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So you want to do whatever you can to really personalize the message for each prospect, which again, going vertical, structuring your days, your weeks, and keeping everything on a vertical type of approach is going to help prevent this. You know, sticking to one vertical at a time, you can create a custom script for each vertical specifically, so that you can specifically reference the needs, the challenges, the priorities that you know that particular vertical has. And then again, once you've exhausted that vertical, then you can move on and do kind of the same approach with another vertical, you know, kind of keeping it very focused, but allowing it to be scalable as well. Okay. Another one probably that you get a lot. Can you just send me some information? And on the surface, you may think that this is a good sign, but what this objection really means is it's another way of them saying, I'm just not interested and I don't want to give you my attention and time. And asking for information, I think, is the more convenient and the more polite way, you know, for that person on the other end of the line to get rid of you. So I think the best way to respond when you get this objection comes from, you know, say yes. Yeah, of course I can send over for some information. Can I have your email address, please? And then all right out of the gate, we've got that opportunity to get their email address. So again, we can add it to our email marketing database for future email marketing activities. Now we want to use that momentum of the request to your advantage. And we want to redirect it and continue moving that conversation forward. So after they've given you their email address, you want to ask them or you know, let them know, I have so much information that I can send your way, but I really don't want to clog up your inbox. You know, I want to make sure that I send you the most relevant pieces that you would be interested in. So would you be able to tell me what specifically you're interested in, and I can send that over? You know, were you more interested in X or Y type of services? And although this is like a little tiny little follow-up question, a lot of your prospects will typically answer it. But I like this approach because it's going to cause your prospect to lower their guard. You know, in that instance, they've given you a bit more information. They're investing a little bit more time and energy into the conversation. And so the likelihood is higher that they might stick around and continue the conversation. And so if you get a sense that that call is going well, continue to ask some more questions. But if you do get cut off, not something to worry about. You know, obviously thank them for their time, tell them that you're going to send the information over immediately. But before letting them go, always make sure that you ask, you know, would it be okay if I call you back in a week or so just to see if you've had a chance to review the material I sent over, so that I can answer any questions that you might have at that point? What day and time works best for you? Because again, not every call is going to lead immediately to an appointment for you, but you can claim success in meeting that second objective of the call, which is gathering as much information as you can with any prospect that you're able to connect with. So because of that little follow-up question that you asked in the beginning, you now know more about their business. And they now know more about you and your business. And hopefully you've determined that there might be some real potential for your businesses later on down the line. So now you're going to be able to send over much more relevant information to them. Theoretically, they'll be studying it a little bit more attentively than before. And so you've been successful now in moving that prospect a little bit further down the sales funnel than if you had just quickly answered off the bat and said, sure, I'll send you information, without asking any follow-up questions at all. Okay. And then the big one, the biggest one that I think is the hardest one for a lot of sales professionals to overcome, and that's trying to get past the gatekeeper. So whether it's an office administrator or an executive assistant, the person tasked with screening calls for the key person you want to speak to, that can be a really difficult person to get past. And I'm sure this is not a surprise to anybody on the line. So instead of considering these gatekeepers just another obstacle, work to enlist their help. Use them as a springboard to see if they can put you in touch with someone else within the company that you can speak with if you're not able to connect with the business owner directly at this time. So some sample scripting. I completely understand that business owner name. They're a very busy person, especially because I know I'm calling out of the blue. Maybe you can point me to someone else that reports into them. I would love to have the opportunity to speak to someone who would be more directly involved in the daily management and security decisions pertaining to your IT infrastructure. Do you happen to know who that person would be and who I should be trying to reach out to? Another approach that one of my colleagues who used to do a lot of cold calling for us back in the day, he actually started out as an inside salesperson, has worked ourselves up to being a training content manager for our MSP Institute. What he found worked really well for him is he worked really hard to be almost friends with that gatekeeper. Because he inevitably spoke to them a lot in trying to get through to the business owner or the key decision maker that he wanted to speak to. So he would often use humor when he would try and call in, and he would make them laugh, using lines like, when can I catch this guy? Does he actually do any work, or are you doing it all for him? And he found that after a few calls, where he was being blocked by the gatekeeper, just by making them laugh and by being friendly with them, he was able to wear that gatekeeper down. And they ended up giving him some times when the decision maker that he wanted to talk to would be in the office and would be open to taking his call. And going back to that partner that I referenced earlier, who hired his new telemarketer just by taking a telemarketing call himself, that woman, he said, called, 25, 30 times over the course of a couple of months. And it just got to the point where the office admin, just felt so bad and went to my partner and pleaded with him and just say, can you just please take a meeting so she'll stop calling? I feel so bad for her. And so, maybe wearing them down is a good tactic, when looking at the moral of that story, because he eventually did take that call. And so that's really where the persistence and the resiliency and having that respectful approach to your cold calling methodology really comes into play. Okay, and then just as a reminder, I always have to do my plug for Market Builder. If you're not familiar with Market Builder, it's our new initiative that provides our partners with a number of campaigns in a box, on-demand, ready-made material that you can go out and use to help market and sell your services, so that you don't need to spend cycles creating the content on your own. And I'm highlighting it today because we do have sales guides listed there. I have a screenshot here. So if you're working on your scripting, here's some additional information that you can leverage, that you can build into your scriptings. And again, we're always looking for feedback in terms of our assets that we provide. So if you're in marketing, or if you sign up for marketing, I have the registration link on the page. If you have feedback, insight, things that you'd like to see, let me know. We're always looking for that kind of feedback so that we can continue to make Market Builder the very best resource for our partners that it can be. All right, and now we're into the home stretch here. Just going to check to see if there's any questions again. Doesn't seem to be any. All right, continue to use the question panel if anything does come to mind. But we're into the home stretch here. So I wanted to include a section on employee management, to help improve our chances that we can hire correctly and retain the people that we hire. So one question that comes up is compensation. And I know that's a really big challenge, especially when I talk about cold calling and the wanting to bring a cold caller in. A question that I get asked is how should I pay them? How do I compensate someone doing our cold calling motion? And this one is a little bit tricky because you want to pay them so that they're motivated to do the job well, because that's really going to serve to maximize the productivity and the efficiency for your overall organization. So I've seen some partners do a couple of different options to compensate their cold caller. One example I heard is they pay per dial, they pay per appointment book, and they pay per closed deal. So it was I think $1.80 per dial that they paid, $5 an appointment that was booked, and then $50 for a closed deal, so that they have kind of a sizable stake in the outcome. Or a familiar one is paying a base salary or a base hourly wage, and then adding on a commission or a bonus rate for different milestones that get met throughout the month. So getting paid for each appointment that's made, receiving a dial bonus if they hit their dial targets for the whole month, receiving a show bonus. So if 80% of the appointments that are booked actually take place, they get a bonus for that. Receiving a closed deal bonus, if the prospect eventually signs on as an MSP client. The Enable way, we use a base salary plus a point system. Each of our SDRs has a points target. I believe it was, when I talked to some of my colleagues in that area, 26 points per month that they needed to reach. And these points were assigned based on size of the deal, and if they met their appointment target for the month and their dials target, and if they achieved their points target for the month, they received a bonus. But really what I want to stress here is you want to avoid commission-only compensation structures for a couple of reasons. Those type of structures, you're very quickly going to demotivate your cold caller, because it can take weeks, it can take months, for them to get ramped up and for commissions to begin materializing. They're likely are going to quit on you, if they feel that they're not getting paid quickly enough. And then also with a commission-only structure, it's like you're putting the entire sales process and closing responsibility on the shoulders of one person. You really have them conducting 100% of the sales process from prospecting all the way to closing in one brief phone call, which I feel is too much responsibility for a commission-only salesperson to take on. And so really the most effective sales team, they split the prospecting and the closing responsibilities between two different people. So your cold caller is only tasked with making the call and booking the appointment and making sure the appointment shows up. The account executive, or yourself as the business owner, you then take over once the appointment is made. And then that person is responsible for leading the prospect through the remainder of the sales funnel and then hopefully closing the sale. And then activity targets, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So you do want to ensure that you're creating some sort of reporting mechanism for your telemarketers so that they can track their activities and so that you really can see how well they're doing. Because tracking is important, because if they're not hitting their numbers, you want to be able to view their activities and provide coaching around where possible tweaks might need to be made in their call process. And if you're just starting out, make it easy. Again, a simple Excel spreadsheet will be fine. They can use it to self-report, and then you can use this and review their tracking spreadsheet, again, either on a daily basis. Maybe you hold a review session first thing in the morning before they start their day, to maybe recap the previous day, or maybe you hold it in the evenings before they go home to kind of recap the day, or at a minimum, review it with them at their weekly one-on-one coaching sessions. And so looking at, what type of metrics you want to track. it really works by reverse engineering what your sales goals are. And this is usually focused on, how much net new MRR from new clients do you want to bring on each month? Is it $1,000 net new MRR, 2,000, 5,000? So what metrics do we need to track? So we want to track, how many dials need to be made each day, each week, over the course of the month. We want to track how many dials are being made to unique prospects that you're calling into for the first time versus dials that are being made to existing contacts that are already in your call base. How many connections are being made to the actual decision maker each day, each week, kind of over the course of the month. And if they're not able to reach the decision maker, why not? Were they blocked by the gatekeeper? Did they have to leave a voicemail message? Did no one pick up? Really ensure that they're tallying this type of information, as from a coaching perspective, these are really good coaching opportunities around why they're not making the right connections that you can hopefully talk about and hash over. How many appointments with the key decision makers need to be booked each week to meet your monthly MRR sales targets? And then if they're not able to book the appointment with the decision maker, why not? What was the objection? Again, really good information to collect for coaching sessions so that you can help improve their tactics. What's the show ratio that's needed versus what is actually happening? And what I mean by this is, what percentage of scheduled meetings booked by your appointment setter are actually taking place? And if there's no shows, if it's a very high no-show rate, why is that happening? What sort of follow-up is being planned to make sure that that appointment does go off without a hitch? And how many meetings does it typically take to land a customer? So what's that close ratio? And then you also make sure, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, you want to make sure that all your notes are being inputted into your CRM or into your Excel spreadsheet or whatever tracking system that you're using, and that you're reviewing the quality of these notes with your appointment setter, because we want to reinforce the habit that if there's no notes, or if there's very few notes or very vague notes in your CRM, it's almost like the call didn't happen. And so to illustrate how this might flow for you, I'm using our own SDR motion. And again, I appreciate that we're a sales organization, we're a sales machine, so our metrics are likely a bit aggressive, but you can tailor this, depending on your own situation and your own MRR growth targets. So for our SDR team, our goals, each SDR has to help their account executive close 5 new customer contracts per month. And so using a typical 21 work days in a month, our SDR needs to make anywhere from $80 to $100 a day. This is using a list that we do provide for them, but they're also expected to generate their own leads to the tune of around 25 a week, so 5 per day. So this could be another activity target that you can add to your self-reporting spreadsheet to see, how many of their own leads are they expected to find for themselves each week, and that they're working to make connections with. The SDR should connect with roughly 5 decision makers a day and book 1 to 2 meetings per day for the outside account executives. So this brings the total appointments for the month to around 31, for the account executive to complete. We expect a show ratio of 70%, meaning that we expect the prospect to show up for the meeting and for the meeting to take place at least 70% of the time. And so using this logic and this workflow, our SDR and account executive team should not miss their target of 5 net new customer contracts per month. And so looking at doing 2,100 dials a month, so this is based on $100 a day, 31.5 meetings booked per month based on 1.5 meetings booked a day, 22 meetings being completed per month based on a 70% show rate, which gives us 5 new customer contracts a month, which we base it on a 25% close rate. Okay. And then weekly one-on-ones, I've mentioned this again a few different times, to set your telemarketer up for success, it is imperative that you schedule at a minimum weekly one-on-ones with your appointment setter, because you want to review their progress, you want to review the results, you want to review, what's working, what's not working. If they're not meeting their targets, why are they not meeting their targets? So items that you want to review each week in your call, looking at their call metrics, their call KPIs, like how are they tracking? Are they on target? Are they off target? If they're behind in their targets, why? What's preventing them from reaching their targets? Again, if possible, it's a good idea to record their calls if you can, if you have that software, or if you can't, in your jurisdiction, just make plans, build it into your day to listen in periodically to calls as a way of spot checking. Listen to the types of objections that are being given. How are they being handled? Are there any common problems or concerns that need to be addressed in their delivery approach? Are they having issues getting past the gatekeeper? Does the decision maker keep saying that they're too busy or not interested and they're working to get themselves off the phone as quickly as possible? Maybe there's some tweaks to the scripts that need to be made. Maybe the sales pitch or the value prop messaging needs to be tightened up a bit. Maybe a new approach altogether needs to be used in how your telemarketer is engaging with the prospects that they're calling. It may not be a bad idea to come up with a few different scripts and a few different approaches and test them out to see which versions are more effective in creating and maintaining engagements. Making sure you're running through your role plays, making sure you're running through your mock calls to kind of help reinforce and continue to build up that confidence and get them comfortable with their delivery approach. And if the sales targets are being missed, if appointments are being, we have people that aren't showing up to the meetings that the appointment setter is making. Why? What's happening? Is the appointment setter doing what's necessary to confirm and verify that the meeting is still going to happen? Are they doing the follow-up call and the communication ahead of time to make sure that the prospect shows up? And if they happen to be off track, this is a big one. Are they being pulled away from the phones and dragged into doing other office tasks that are taking them away from their cold calling duties? It is critical that your cold caller remains 100% focused on the outbound calling activities. That's what you hired them to do. But it can be very easy to slip into the habit of having that person do other office tasks that maybe no one has the time to do, maybe no one wants to do, but because of the new person and the most junior on staff, it's easy to kind of pull them and get them to do that. So really resist that tendency, resist that habit. All right, so just in summary, I know we've had some people that have said that they've never, that they don't have anyone dedicated, they don't plan to. Maybe I've moved the needle a little bit for some of those listening today that came into the webinar initially thinking that cold calling is not a good approach for them. I hope I've proven that here at Enable, we do feel strongly that cold calling is not dead. I almost like to think that maybe it might give you an edge over your competitors, because there is the conception out there, and a lot of MSPs out there are not doing any sort of cold calling, or they're not doing it very consistently. So they're scrapping it altogether because they felt that it didn't work. But cold calling does remain an effective business tool, especially in the B2B selling that we're doing. And I keep coming back to this, to take your business to the next level, you want to implement a structured lead gen strategy that does move beyond relying on word of mouth and referrals only. So developing that marketing plan to build out your virtual audiences, and then coupling it with that proactive nature of cold calling, it is going to work to get you the growth results that you're looking for. But again, it isn't an easy button for accomplishing this. But it's entirely attainable with a focus and a plan. So again, thank you everyone for attending today's session. Again, hope you found it a valuable use of your time. Any follow-up questions that you may have, my contact information is on the screen. My email, Register for our office hours next Tuesday that they're taking place, 11 o'clock Eastern time. If you have any questions that you want to send to me ahead of time, please do. Then I can provide a top quality answer for you. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, love to connect with you there. Anyway, thank you again for attending. Absolutely appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.